Good afternoon, dear listeners. Here is Andre Branco, and you are on the channel Souls Like. Today I bring you a story that will mess with your emotions and make you reflect on the family ties and the choices we make in the name of love. Get ready to get involved in this narrative that seems like real-life output. The alarm clock didn't even have to play that Monday. Marina woke up wrapped in a peace that only the small pleasures of the morning can provide. The golden light of the sun filtering through the voile curtains, the surrounding scent of newly chosen coffee and the soft melody of her favorite radio. Those moments of tranquility in their modest but cozy, two-bedroom house by the city were precious. After 3 years of marriage to Vita, the routine no longer scared. On the contrary, it had become a comforting security. The apartment, inherited from his grandmother, was small, but full of memories. When they got married, they didn't even go through their minds the idea of renting or financed another place. Why complicate life if you already had a ceiling that was theirs? At the time, Vita had come to play that Marina was her lucky amulet, so perfect had been that coincidence. And she, of course, tightly believed it. Those days, however, were different. Marina had taken off her work to finish the distance learning course monograph she was doing. Vita had already left for another day in the mechanical workshop where he worked, and she could finally enjoy the silence of the empty apartment to devote to studies. In recent times, he had noticed that her husband was more tense, but attributed it to the tensions at work. After all, the workshop went through staff cuts, and uncertainty left anyone with his hair standing. It was almost noon when the phone rang, pulling it out of the concentration. Across the line, Vita's voice sounded strange, as if he tried to disguise something unpleasant behind a forced tone of joy. "Marie, it's as follows." He hesitated. "We're coming with my mother." "Your mother?" Marina frowned. "But didn't you say she would be on the spa until the end of the month?" "Yeah, she came back before." He said he didn't like the place. An uncomfortable pause followed. "We are already on their way. We arrived in half an hour." "Okay, I'll prepare something for lunch," Marina replied, trying to keep her calm, although the news made her apprehensive. Alma Konstantinovna, Vita's mother, never hid her disdain for Marina. From the beginning of the relationship, it had made it clear, without half words, that the daughter-in-law was not the woman who had dreamed of her son. The only child, by the way, by which she was capable of anything, including intruding on the couple's life without the slightest embarrassment. The spirits between the two have always been tense, but they never came to an open confrontation, largely because Alma lived in another city, a few hours away, and the visits were not frequent. Marina rushed to tidy up the house and take the ingredients for a lunch that she expected, softened the mood. Prepared meat with vegetables, a dish that knew they both liked. Perhaps food will help to soften things, he thought as he cut the potatoes more strongly than necessary. Exactly 30 minutes later, the doorbell rang. At the door, Vita appeared carrying 2 large bags, and behind him, imposing, was Sol Konstantinovna. Despite 50-8, the woman appeared less. Well-kept brown hair, impeccable makeup, clothes that shouted money. Quite a contrast with the simplicity of the apartment. "Good afternoon, Sol," Marina greeted, forcing a smile. "Get in, I'm finishing lunch." The mother-in-law stared at her with a look that dismissed words. "Hello, Marina," he said dryly. "I hope you are not getting used to my son to eat only chips." Without waiting for an answer, she passed Marina as if her daughter-in-law were Invis. Iviv by entering the corridor. Vita threw his wife a guilty look before carrying his bags inside. "Mom, I'll show you where you can stay," he said, leading her to the living room, where the sofa bed was. Marina returned to the kitchen, trying to contain the irritation that grew inside her. "It's just a few days," he repeated mentally. On the weekend, Alma would go away, and everything would go back to normal. The lunch went in a sharp silence, broken only by the Sol acid comments. The meat was dry, the saltless potato, the salad sauce should be olive oil, not mayonnaise. Vita ate in silence, avoiding her eyes in her eyes. After the meal, as they had tea in the room, Sol let out, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. "Viktorzinho, you didn't tell me that your apartment was so small. How do you two fit here?" "Give us, mother," he murmured, visibly uncomfortable. "Well, now they'll have to tighten a little," said the mother-in-law, stirring tea sugar with an annoying tranquility. Marina felt a chill through the spine. In what sense? Didn't he tell you? Alma made a grimace of exaggerated surprise. I sold my apartment. Marina turned to Vita, who suddenly found the extremely interesting tablecloth standard. Vita. His voice was a mixture of demand and unbelief. I was going to tell you, Marie, he began, stuttering, but his mother interrupted him. What a silly thing, son. Decision is already made. Now I'm going to live here with you. And you, Marinina, she has set her eyes on her daughter-in-law. If she is tight, she may well go to her mother's house. Isn't it that she has a 3-bedroom apartment right in the center? They all fit there, don't they? Marina felt the floor open under her feet. What is that, Vita? What a joke is this? Marie, listen, he avoided his gaze. My mother really sold her apartment. She can't be alone, she's 50-8. 50-8. Exploded Marina. She's younger than half of her co-workers, who still support family and raise grandchildren. Don't lift your voice to my son, caught Alma, authoritarian. He's right. A mother needs help. And frankly, you should be grateful that he had endured to live in this little house inherited for so long. Not every man would accept such a thing. This little house is mine, shouted Marina, feeling the anger to take over. And I won't get out of here. Your mother is right, Vita said for the first time firmly, but in a way that Marina had never heard. You should go to your mother's house. It's just even organizing. She looked at him as if she didn't recognize him. In 3 years of marriage, he had never seen him so clearly against her. Are you serious? His gaze jumped from one to another. This is my house. I'm the owner. You can't expel me. Expel? What a ugly word, Sol laughed with disdain. Who would want this crate? If it weren't for the situation, we wouldn't step here. But we will have to hold on until I got something better. Marina tried to process what she heard. You sold the apartment and want to live here. And the sale money. Vita and Sol exchanged a quick look. This is not your business, said the mother-in-law dry. Mom, you don't have to be so, Vita tried, but she silenced him with a gesture. Don't justify her. What we do with our money is our problem. The important thing is that we now have a plan. Flat. Marina repeated, incredulously. That's right. Sol smiled, triumphantly. Let's live here for a while, raise money, and then buy a decent apartment in a decent neighborhood. And you, she looked at Marina with a fierce smile, you can do whatever you want. That is, do you plan to take me out of my own home, occupy the space, and then disappear when you well understand? Marina didn't believe what she heard. Why? The dramatic. Victor frowned. It's just temporary. It is at your mother's house until we resolve. Marina felt her throat tighten. Not saying anything else, he got up from the table and headed for the room. The hands trembled as he opened the closet and removed the documents from the house, the deed, the property record. When he returned to the living room, he held the papers hard, as if they could protect it from the approaching storm. Marina left the papers on the table, right in front of her mother-in-law and her husband. Appreciate, he said, with a calm that surprised her. This is my house. I am the only owner, and I won't leave here. Alla Konstantinovna poured a discharge to the documents. Papers. What else does it? He grunted, as if it was not worth anything. Vita is my son, and he will live where I send. And you? You are nobody. 3 years together? This is not time. My decision is made. I will live here, and you who send yourself to your mother. Mom is right, Vita echoed, without even lifting his eyes. It was at that moment that something inside Marina left. She looked at her husband, bent over herself, submissive to her mother's will, and understood, it was not the mother-in-law who destroyed her marriage, but the betrayal of the man she trusted most. Do you know one thing, Vita? He said, forcing his voice not to tremble. You are right. Someone here needs to leave. And as the house is mine, paused, letting the phrase hover in the air, it will be you. What? Alla Konstantinovna rose from a jump, the chair gritting against the floor. How do you dare? Very simple. Marina took off her cell phone from her pocket. I have two options. Either you get your things and go well, or call the police and record an attempted invasion of property. Choose. You wouldn't have the courage. The mother-in-law burned fury, the red face of indignation. Try to stop me. Marina's fingers were already sliding down the screen, ready to dial. You have 3 hours. Not a minute more. Victor, pale, tried to intervene. Marie, let's talk. Maybe an agreement. Agreement. She laughed, bitter. You just agreed to kicking me out of my own home to house your mother. What kind of agreement do you imagine now? But Mom has nowhere to go. She sold the apartment. And that's your problem, Marina cut, ruthless. 3 hours. The clock is already running. The next 180 minutes were hell. Alla Konstantinovna shouted, threatened, cried, tried to appeal to pity. Vita, divided between his mother and wife, ran from side to side, desperate for a solution that would never come. But Marina didn't give in. When the deadline was almost exhausted, his finger hovered on the police call button. Okay, let's go, Vita finally gave up, the broken voice. But where? Pension? Rent? I don't know. Marina crossed her arms. So your mother said, you have the money from selling her apartment. Use. Vita hesitated. Actually, Mom invested everything in a friend's business. He promised to double the value in 3 months. Marina closed her eyes, containing the wave of unbelief. Working on a bank, she has seen this story before. That is, you don't have a penny. Not quite. Alla Konstantinovna intervened, acidic. Gina is trusted people. He will pay us. Of course it goes, Marina mocked. In the meantime, don't tell me to play your choices. 3 hours. They are over. Exactly 180 minutes later, she closed the door behind them, leaving them in the hall with bags and looks full of resentment. The last thing he heard was the voice of the mother-in-law, loaded with poison. Don't worry, Vitinia. We come back. This ungrateful won't escape us. 3 months passed. The divorce was fast, without dramas. Victor contested nothing, perhaps because there was nothing to share. Later, Marina learned from common friends, the Gina disappeared with the money, and Vita's family sink. They rented a 4th Minu. On the periphery, Alla Konstantinovna got a job as a supermarket cashier, and Vita continued on the same auto center, but now half of the salary went to rent. Until, one afternoon, Marina saw him sitting on the bench in front of the building where she lived. He was thin, his eyes back, his hands restless. Hi, he said as she approached. Can I talk to you? She hesitated. A part wanted to move on, another, to which one day had loved that man, gave in. 5 minutes. He sat at a safe distance, his arms crossed. I wanted to apologize, Vita began, his voice hoarse. Betrayed you. I let my mother destroy what we had. It was unforgivable. Just that. Marina looked at him coldly. No. He shook his head. I came to say that my mother is coming back to her city. My aunt accepted her until she re-stabilizes herself. And I rented a room close to work. I won't appear here anymore. Good to know, she nodded. I'm glad you're reorganizing. Yes, Vita laughed without joy. But me. I lost you. And just now I understand the size of my stupidity. Marina remained silent, observing the movement of the street. I'm not asking forgiveness, no other chance, he continued. I just wanted you to know, I take my fault. And I am sorry. I hope you are happy. He got up to leave, but she stopped him. Wait. What happened to your mother? Why did she change her mind? Vita sighed. Life taught her. After we lost everything, she worked hard, saved every penny. I think you understood that I was wrong, to try to control us. A month ago, she even apologized to me. He smiled sadly. Said he ruined my marriage for selfishness. I didn't expect either. Marina arched her eyebrows, surprised. Sometimes you have to lose everything to see what really matters, Victor murmured. Too bad I took too long to understand. He turned to go out, but Marina called him without thinking. Vita. Want to get in for tea? He froze, incredulously. Serious? Just tea. Just that, she confirmed. Nothing more. 5 years later, Marina watched from the porch of the country house while her husband taught her son how to pipe. Inside, the noise of pans came from the kitchen. Alla Konstantinovna prepared the lunch, cursing the son-in-law for disturbing. Life had given an unexpected turn. After that tea, they did not resume everything right away, but gradually rebuilt confidence. Vita changed. He learned to impose himself, even before his own mother. And Alla Konstantinovna? The difficulties and fear of losing their child forever made her rethink each word, every act. When Vita announced that she was back with Marina, she not only accepted but sought her daughter-in-law to apologize, clumsy, sincere. The second marriage was simple, but full of hope. A year later, was born Misha, who became the center of everyone's universe, including her grandmother Alla. 2 years ago, they sold Marina's apartment and bought the house around, with space for everyone. Retired Alla Konstantinovna had moved to help with her grandson and the house. Her new husband, known on a cruise for the elderly. He found his place in this unlikely family. On weekends, he turned the garage into a workshop next to Victor, sculpting furniture that carried the smell of fresh wood and memory. At the afternoons, Misha taught to move the pieces on the chessboard with the patience of who knows that the game of life is also learned to be gradually. "What are you thinking about?" Victor approached and sat beside him, wrapping the woman's shoulders with one arm. Its fingers, still ripping to the sawdust, distractedly stroked the fabric of their sweater. "In life," said Marina, with a smile that was half nostalgia, half gratitude. "How everything fits so strangely. Who would say, 5 years ago, that we would be here? Like this." Paused, looking at the horizon where the sun eats. "I would fade. Do you regret it?" The question stopped in the air like a loose sheet, and for a moment Victor felt the weight of uncertainty in his chest. But then she tilted her head against her shoulder, firm as an answer. "No. I'm happy." Her voice was low, but clear. Sometimes we need to go through pain and losses to learn to value what we really have. A triumphant cry cut silence. Misha, in the backyard, raised her arms while her kite red, with blue tape, finally gained height, dancing between the clouds. "Mom, Daddy, look. I achieved." They waved, the faces illuminated by a pride that did not need words. "You know," Victor murmured, his eyes still fixed on his son. "That day when I stayed my mother with my bags on the staircase. It was the worst of my life. But today I understand that it was necessary. Sometimes you have to lose everything to start seeing what really matters." From the interior of the house, the voice of Alla Konstantinovna echoed, authoritarian and affectionate. "Lunch is ready. All at the table." Marina got up, reaching out to her husband. "Come on. They wait for us." And so, holding hands, they walked toward the familiar noise, heated discussions about politics with father-in-law, the mother-in-law's careful questions about Misha's day at school, the boy's incessant chatter, who now told every detail of his flying kite. They walked toward life, this same life that, despite all their curves, trials, and surprises, had revealed exactly as they, unknowingly, always wanted.